Hello, my name is Joe Kanouse, and I work at Home to Stay Housing Assistance Center here in Midland, Michigan. The producers of this program have asked me to come on and talk about the pit count that takes place in our area and homelessness in general in Midland County. The producers have submitted a list of questions to me that I will go through and answer as we go through the program. At the end of the program, I'll provide some contact information, so if there is any other questions or if anybody has anything else they want to know, they can feel free to reach out and we will do our best to answer those questions. So the first question is, what does PIT stand for? The PIT count that we do stands for point in time count, and what it is it is an annual count of the homeless population in our county. The PIT count is done on the last Wednesday in January every year. That is a date that is mandated by HUD, Housing and Urban Development, the federal cabinet branch that oversees the grants and the programs that we run, including the PIT count. For Midland County, we at Home to Stay do the PIT count, and when we do it, there are a few different aspects to that. One is that the various shelters and organizations throughout our community record any homeless people that they encounter that night and submit that information to us at Home to Stay. Additionally, we at Home to Stay arrange a street outreach portion of the PIT count where we assemble community volunteers that go out into the community and look for homeless individuals that are not fortunate enough to be in a shelter, be that in their vehicle or sleeping outside or whatever the case may be, so we can try and capture as many people as we can so we get as an accurate of a count as possible, so that our point in time count is the best snapshot that we can possibly get. Who gets the results of the count? At the end of the count, what we do is we assemble all of the information and we submit it into a database that the state manages, where we store all of the information for everybody that we work with that is homeless, and communities all throughout the state submit their information to that same database. And then on a state level, in Lansing, somebody compiles all of that information and puts the final numbers together. Is the state of Michigan involved with this effort? Yes, I may have just led into that a little bit there. So the state is involved in this effort through MSHDA, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. What is the data used for? The data is used for a number of purposes, locally, statewide, and nationally. The largest impact of the count is that it has a direct effect on the monies that are distributed to municipalities and localities for addressing the issues of homelessness. And so, depending on how many people we report and what type of picture that gives as far as to what homelessness looks in a given area, that determines how grants are distributed to try and address the issue of homelessness. Additionally, the data is used locally within our local planning body here in Midland County for interagency planning over the course of the year, so we can kind of come together as a community, look at our numbers, compare them to previous years, try and identify trends, and then develop strategies that we can use to try and reduce those numbers overall. Why are we doing this? What is the purpose? Well, I think the purpose is that in any time you're dealing with an issue, the best understanding you can have of it is going to inform your problem-solving approach to it and make it that much more effective. And so, in order to combat homelessness in our area, the first step is to understand the gravity and the scope of homelessness in our area. Also, we want to get as much of that money as we can into our community to help combat the problem, and so that is obviously a big reason of why we do it as well. What does the data tell us is the next question, and the data that we collect is not identifying in any way, so we don't say these are the names of the homeless people in our area. What we do is we capture certain demographics such as age, gender, first-time homeless or not, how long they've been homeless, whether they're on the street or in a shelter. And so that data changes slightly year to year, with certain demographic areas changing more so than others. Are there goals and timelines around this effort? Yeah, certainly. So anytime I think you have an undertaking of this size where you're trying to count all of the homeless people in a county, there's definitely, in order for it to go as smooth as possible, you want to have as much planning and coordination ahead of time as possible. And so for us, with the count taking place at the end of January, that starts fairly early in the fall, where we begin first composing the letters that we'll send out to all of the agencies to let them know, hey, this is when the count is taking place this year. This is the forms that we want you to use to fill out to report your people, and this is how we want you to submit that information. And so we want to get that all started really early so that we give people time to get their internal processes in place, and then also give them time to reach out with any feedback or questions they may have. Additionally, with the street outreach portion of that, we want to have time to assemble a crew of volunteers that are going to be able to go out on that evening and actually canvass the county and look for those people. And so it isn't always necessarily the easiest thing to get a bunch of people together on a cold January night to go drive around the county and look for people. And so the earlier we get started, we have found the more people we're able to get on board. And the more people we have on board obviously leads to us being able to canvass the county better and get more coverage. And that obviously increases the likelihood of us finding the people that we're looking for. What are we doing to have a positive impact on the data? Well, I think that anytime you're looking at data quality, you want to do what you can to make sure that the data you are reporting is as accurate and as clear as possible. And so we have certain processes in place to make sure that people aren't counted twice, is a big thing that we do around data quality, to make sure that, for instance, if there was an agency such as the West Midland Family Center or Community Mental Health, and they're working with somebody and they encounter them as homeless and they report them into us, there's a possibility that individual may have been in contact with our agency before, and we would have included them in our count. So we have processes in place to make sure that that person isn't counted twice, to make sure that our data is as high quality and accurate as possible. What is the curve or year-over-year impact on the count? So for the last few years in Midland County, our numbers have been fairly consistent. In fact, in 2021, this January, when we did our count, we came up with 68 people that were homeless under the federal government's definition, which is living on the street, shelter, or a place not meant for human habitation, such as a vehicle, a camper, a tent, things of that nature. For the purposes of the PIT count nationally, we do not include those who are doubled up or couch surfing, because HUD does not define homelessness in that way. For local purposes, for the local planning body and other area agencies, we do include those numbers because it just helps us get a clearer shot of housing instability in Midland County so that we can better address that. And so in 2021, that number was 68. In 2020, that number was 67. So it really doesn't get more consistent than that, and we don't necessarily know why it was so close. But if we go back to 2019, the number was 45. And so the one trend that we can see is that over the last 3 years, homelessness has continued to increase, albeit maybe not very drastically. We have seen some other recent data trends that we can maybe have a little bit more insight in on. Traditionally, when we look at the gender of those that we find that are homeless and that are reported as homeless, men traditionally have always had a higher count than women. In 2021, women accounted for 56% of the homeless population reported during the PIT count, and our best educated guess on that locally is the opening of the new shelter house facility which has a much higher capacity than their old location. And so that's going to directly, the majority of their clients there are women, and so that's going to report in a higher number of women being reported. As a member of the Midland community, what can the residents of Midland County do to help reduce the numbers of homeless? So this is a fantastic question. I'm really glad to have this question included on here. I think that there are a number of things that we can do as community members. I think that if we can kind of answer this question in a couple different ways. I think that we could say short-term, and then we can look at long-term efforts as well. For short-term efforts, I think that some of the easiest things that we can all do is either donate our time or our money to the agencies and organizations in our community that are on the front lines of combating homelessness in our area. And so I think that that's things like Home to Stay, things like Midland's Open Door, Shelter House. Those types of agencies and organizations are always welcoming volunteers, donations. They all have fundraisers annually, and sometimes more often than annually. And so even just sharing those things on social media and just spreading the word can have a great benefit for the community. But being directly involved is probably one of the most satisfying things that you'll do, and I don't think you will regret it. I think that longer term, some of the things that we can do is address the bigger problems that kind of result in homelessness in our area. And I think that those are things as far as affordable housing being right at the top of the list. And then also what we can do to just increase wages and employment in our area. Affordable housing is a large one. There was a really great study put together by the community in 2018. There was a housing study done that really evaluates this issue on a massive scale. The report from that study can be found on the Home to Stay website. And I would encourage you to look into that to really get a really good understanding of the affordable housing crisis in Midland County. Some of the things in the works to combat that are the Center City lofts that are being developed, which is going to be a 55-unit low-income apartment complex that we desperately need. The City Council that's gone through all of the processes there, but it took a lot of people advocating for that and showing up to those City Council meetings to make sure that things like that happen. Habitat for Humanity is also working on building some multifamily units that would target the demographics that are most vulnerable to becoming homeless. And so they're another great organization to support and to keep up with their efforts right now as far as just the immediate stuff, but then also those long-term developments like they have with the multifamily units. And then I think that another thing that we can all do is to just try to not forget that not everybody has that place to go home to, and there is probably nothing scarier in the world than having your kids and not knowing where you're going to have them sleep that night. And so I think for all of us, just remaining cognizant of that and doing whatever we can, whether that is donating our time, our money, a space of our social media to that cause. I think all of those efforts go a long way, and our community will benefit greatly from everybody working together. It takes a village. I think that's all I have for today. Perhaps in the future we can have another program where we can get into this deeper. If anybody would like more information, I would certainly refer you to the housing study. Again, that's a great source of information to understand where we're at in Midland County. But also our agents, you can feel free to contact us at Home to Stay with any questions. Our telephone number is 989-496-9550. We have a Facebook page that you can reach out to us on. And you can also reach us on our website and find out more information there, and that is www.myhometostay.org. I thank you all for watching this. I appreciate any efforts you're willing to put in to help this in our community, and I want to thank the great members of our community who not only put together this program to help raise awareness, but who work on a daily basis to help combat the issue of homelessness in Midland County. Thank you.